Hello and welcome to Hustle Faithfully Podcast. We're so excited to have you with us. He's Ricardo.
And he's Jonathan.
Today we're going to be talking about right people, right times.
Right time.
So this is really all about relationship. We're going to be focusing on knowing who is close to you and knowing who you want to keep close, but at a distance at the same time. So our Bible verse today comes from Matthew 17.
Matthew 17 and 1. That Bible verse is, and after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, his brother, and led them up a mountain by themselves. Now, the significance of that is he had specific people that could travel to the mountain with him that were different than the ones that came to the foot of the mountain with him.
So we all know Jesus had his 12 disciples, his 12 people that were really close.
Yeah.
His inner circle.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, just like a bullseye, the closer you get to the goal, the smaller that inner circle gets.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So he went from his 12 to Peter, James, and John.
Yeah.
So he did away with 75% of his inner circle to go to the highest of heights with him in that particular passage.
Right.
You know, that's the same thing with life as a whole. You had those people that you were really close with, and you had those people that you're moderately close with.
Right.
You had those very near, dear, close relationships, and you had those that are friends, and then you had those that are acquaintances. And it's so important to know exactly who fits into what category.
Yeah.
It's just like a rocket ship. When it starts, before it launches here on Earth, it's huge.
Right.
80 feet, 100 feet, 120 feet, however tall they are. By the time that it blasts off, it starts shedding parts of it before it even leaves the Earth's atmosphere. By the time that it gets up to space, it does its travels in space, and it makes its way back here to Earth, it's the size of a car.
Right.
It must let go of parts of it in order to continue to ascending.
Right.
And to come back to Earth. And it's so important to know those that are around us that we need to be really close with, and we need to let know the inner workings of things versus those that can just have a bird's eye view, so to speak. 30,000 foot view. The goals, the dreams that God gives to you, they're not for everybody. They're for you.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to bring other people along. Yet, it was not a conference call. God imparted that into you. Now, that's not just for business. That's also for your relationship.
Right.
For who you're going to marry. You know, I'm pretty confident the Bible says, do not be unequally yoked.
Yeah. And that isn't just talking about marital relationships.
That's right.
You know, you talked about some of the different categories when it comes to relationships, and you talked about the acquaintances. And that's part of that walking away from the bulls out to the outer rings, where you talk about the friends, the acquaintances are associates, and then the assignments. And then you talk about mentors. Now, friends, of course, are part of the inner circle. You got associates, people that you may be casual with, people you may see in church, you know, people you may know their name, but they don't have the same type of relationship with you that their friends do.
That's right.
Then you have those that are assignments, people whose life you're supposed to speak into, people whose life you're supposed to make better in some way or impact their life in some way, whether it's spiritually, business-wise, or any other way. And then there are mentors who speak into your life. And these people are all in different areas and have different types of access to you. And because of the access that they have to you, that determines the time you also give to each one of these and where you position them.
Right.
Jim Collins is a guy that wrote the book Good to Great. And one of the things he talked about was people getting the right people on your bus, and not just getting the right people on your bus, but having them in the right seat. And he said, okay, and then it's not just having them in the right seat, have people that are on there for the right reasons. Because if you get someone on the bus that's in the right seat, but they're going in the direction you're going for the wrong reasons. Let's say they're only going because you're going in that direction. Well, what if 10 miles down the road you decide to change direction? Are they no longer with you? Because they're only going because of the direction. But do you have people who, even if you don't know how to get there, they see the vision and they're on board because they have the same type of vision, or they have a vision that partners with yours.
Right.
So they're willing to co-labor with you. So even in a moment where you have to pivot, they pivot with you.
That's right.
Big difference.
Absolutely, it is. And, life, business, it is all about pivoting. We have these grand, glorious, beautiful dreams and visions for what's going to happen in our relationships, in our businesses, yet it doesn't always work out that way.
Right.
And having the right people on there that will weather the storms with you and that will go over the bumpy roads with you is what's going to get you and them and your relationships and your businesses to that next level.
Yeah.
If you are unequally yoked in a marriage, well, I had somebody ask me last night, they're not married, they're dating. And he said, Jonathan, I just want to grow. I want to grow. I want to keep my life moving forward. And she doesn't want to.
Right.
He said she's comfortable as it is and she does not want to grow. Anytime I offer her something, she just pushes it off to the side.
Right.
And if you are not in the same vein of growth, it's going to cause challenges.
It is.
And you don't have to be in the same business. You don't have to partner up in the same exact thing.
Right.
As you know, I own several businesses and my wife owns a business. We are intertwined in each other's businesses because we're married.
Right.
Saying yes, we're both on a growth track. It's kind of if you are in a vehicle and one person wants to go and one person wants to stay still.
Right.
How's that ever going to work?
It's not.
Right.
The thing, like you just mentioned, the vehicle, you can't have someone on the gas and someone on the brakes. Both are in the right vehicle, but they're heading in opposite direction. One wants to go, one may want to go back. One may want to stay, but they're not on the same page.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to not misappropriate a relationship. And you can make someone who was supposed to be in an assignment, you can end up we're talking about marriage and business. You could end up taking someone on as a partner that was simply an assignment, but because of the intimacy of the relationship, the closeness that you all develop, you end up taking on someone as a partner that was just an assignment. So now you've taken a relationship that was supposed to be you giving to them in a certain way and them having certain access to you. You've now drawn them in closer to the goal and they were never meant to be there.
Right.
And so being careful about how you and where you position people can be one of those things that if you're not in a place where you have the type of discernment, and I'm not talking about the discerning of spirits, but the discerning of people. There's that inner witness,
right,
where the things you see, the things you hear, and then the inner witness that you have that either says there's something right or something wrong with this situation based on what I've seen and what I've heard. So between the three of those things, it helps you better align people with the right place or position in your life so that as you move forward, you have somebody that's able to move forward with you rather than somebody that's wanting you to stay where they are.
That's right. And when you get aligned and you have the right people on your team and you are married to the right person.
Yeah.
And your life explodes. That does not mean that there won't be challenges. There will always be challenges.
Right.
The Bible talks about challenges that we will face as a people. Yet, when you have somebody there to encourage you and to lift you up and to push you to that next level and to help you advance forward.
Right.
Yours for the taking. You know, we all know that our famous Bible verse, Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. There's part of that too, that you are in alignment with the right people.
Right.
That's a huge source of strength.
Right.
To push you through and to see you grow and expand to all the levels that you're looking to expand to. And when you get into those relationships where you are in alignment, let's flip this personal. You're in a relationship with the right person. You hit hard times. What does that look like? Because we all hit hard times.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to hit hard times in a relationship. So how do you weather through the storm? Where does that come in? Being aligned with the right person.
Right.
You know, most people, before they get married, they date quite a bit. So there's your 12. Go back to the story in Matthew 17. There's your 12. Then you bring it down to 3. And then you settle with, and settle is a bad word to use there. You come together with the one, the right one.
Right.
What does that look like versus being in the relationship with the wrong one? Have you ever been there with the wrong one? Or dating or intimate?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how many times? I mean, I've been there with the wrong one more times than I've been with the right one,
right.
Obviously. I mean, there's this thing of that we have to develop when it comes to the people or the person that we choose, not people, but the person that we choose, that requires a certain amount of relational intelligence.
Right.
And the relational intelligence really is defined as our ability to properly define and properly align the relationships. So depending on what we've gone through or what we're dealing with, we will sometimes have someone that in a moment things will feel good or look good. Or you hear the pats on your back or the attaboys or the things that kind of stroke your ego.
Right.
And those things can cause you to not properly define that relationship because you are pursuing a relationship for all the wrong reasons. So your discernment is low. You know, you don't have that inner witness. You're not paying attention to those cues, those visual cues, and those audible things that you would hear someone say that would point to who this person actually is versus who you think they are based on how they make you feel.
Right.
You know, so we can sometimes not see all the things we should see because we want relationships so bad that we end up choosing someone that we shouldn't have chosen. They may have been someone that needed us for a moment, but we end up taking someone in to our lives that was only meant to be there for a day, and we made it a lifetime in a sense.
Right. Right. When you get with the right person, you also have accountability.
Yes, sir.
There's one thing that is overlooked, I feel, a lot of times, of holding somebody accountable.
Yeah.
I've been in business for myself for 20 years.
Yeah.
I can keep myself on a straight path. However, at the same time, I also see there's somebody there that I have to report back to per se.
Right.
And it still raises the bar with everything. So your relationships, they matter all the way around. Your friendships, your marriages, everything matters all the way around. And finding that true accountability partner is paramount to get you to where you need to be. And I'd like to take this time to thank the sponsor of this podcast, Thought Provoking Change. You can head over to www.thoughtprovokingchange.com. Become a member today. We have huge accountability groups, sales and marketing groups, connection groups, everything based in thoughtprovokingchange.com. Join today. So when you find the proper people to align with,
right,
what does that do to your life as an individual and as a business?
Man, let me tell you, having the right people, it's like, when you got gears that aren't quite, they align with one another, but they need to be greased.
Right.
You know, it's like having that grease that makes the ease of movement happen that wouldn't have happened when things are seizing up a bit.
Right.
You know, having a right person in your life is like having grease on your gears, you know, where they help give you mobility. They help clarify a vision that you may have. You may have a vision, but it needs clarity. And once it gets clarity, it gets direction. And then once it has direction, it's able to gain momentum.
Right.
And so having people in your life helps you in those different stages, because the thing about it is, a guy that I was talking to not long ago, Dr. Jason Anderson, he and I were talking, and one of the things that he was talking to me about was something that a lot of us have heard, but don't always really take inventory of the rooms we're in, you know, where we're not the smartest person in the room, or we may actually be the dumbest person in the room, which honestly would be a great and exciting thing, because then there's a wealth of knowledge to be gained by being the person that knows the least.
Right.
So being able to be around the right people and aligned for the right reasons give you access to the right information, which now gives you the ability to make the right decisions.
I love it. If you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find a new room.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That can be a very intimidating situation. I remember when I first started speaking, I was at an event, and it was not very large, probably 75 people, 100 people, something like that. And I remember when it was my turn to go up on stage and speak, I was horrified.
Right.
Now, I had spoken in front of crowds larger than that.
Right.
There was just something about that crowd, because I knew that of the 75 to 100 people, I was probably in the lowest, the very, very single digit lowest percentile of people that had experience doing what I was getting up in front of all of them to do.
Right.
Yet, that's where the biggest growth comes in at. That's where surrounding yourself with those people that, quite frankly, are better than you in that realm, and then they pour into you. That is how you grow, one level at a time.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to jump up and reach the next rung on the ladder that's 6 feet tall and then pull yourself up. Take it a foot at a time and just keep going, keep growing. And you do that by having the right relationships.
Yeah, you do. You absolutely do. One of the things you talked about that incremental growth. Sometimes we want to grow exponentially before we learn how to grow incrementally. It's so important to own the next step. You know, like, I don't care how fast you run or how far you run, none of that starts without the first step. You don't get to the destination without that one. If you don't own the one, the other 50 you take won't ever happen. So why worry about the 50 when all you need to worry about is the one? So it's one of those things where if I'm able to take one step, celebrate taking the step, because one thing I've said many, many times is, if, you know, every step I take, no matter how small, is one step closer to where I'm going and one step further away from where I've been. And if I can do that consistently, that helps gain and build momentum. And it goes back to that whole thing of people will say seeing is believing. And I'm of the mind that believing is seeing, because, and then seeing becomes believing, because I believe that I can do so first. So I'll take the step. And then I've seen that I've taken these steps and I'm getting closer. Now, since I see it, now I believe greater, you know, so it becomes a cycle. And once you begin to see and believe and see, it creates that momentum. So that's an important thing to do. And when you have people around you that do believe in you, it gives you a greater sense of believing, even when you cannot see it, until you can see it.
Wow. You know, seeing is believing and believing is seeing. I totally agree. Everything in this world has two births. Everything. You have, well, let's take this podcast as an example, as this is our launching show.
Right.
This is the birth of Hustle Faithfully podcast, because this is the first one that is being put out to the public for viewership and listenership.
Right.
Yet, this is the second birth of Hustle Faithfully podcast.
Yes, it is.
You and I have been behind the scenes working diligently for quite some time to get to the spot we're at now.
Yeah.
So what everybody is seeing that they feel is the birth of it, although it is a birth in a sense, it's the second birth of it.
Yeah.
Every business that has ever come to be was first birthed in somebody's mind.
Yes,
in somebody's heart.
Yes, it was.
You know, Walt Disney built Disney. And if you read a story about Walt Disney, he mapped out Epcot, which is one of the parks in Orlando, Florida. He passed away before Epcot was ever built. Before it was completed, Walt Disney was no longer here. I would argue the fact that if Walt Disney could walk the face of the planet right now, the things that have not changed are exactly the way that Walt wrote them out, scripted them out, and explained them to his team, because it was first born in his head, in his heart, and then it had to be born here. Same thing with any other business and any other relationship.
Yeah.
You see somebody, it's love at first sight. That's where your birth in that relationship really begins. And then you just go ahead with it and you keep nurturing that relationship. You keep fostering that relationship and it blossoms. Knowing exactly who you are putting your focus into, taking it from everybody down to your chosen 12, down to the 3 that can go to the mountaintop with you. And if you continue reading the Bible, there were plenty of times where Jesus was by himself.
Yeah.
Which meant that even Peter, James, and John, the 3 that were chosen for that particular passage, there were times where Jesus went and it was just him. When he was fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, it was just him. And the temptation set in. You got to know who you're around. You also got to know to look for toxicity, because toxicity needs to make an exit from your life just as quick as the right relationships need to make an entrance into your life.
Yeah.
That toxic person, those toxic people will pull you down with a quickness.
It absolutely will. We both have had instances where people that are closest to us that you would think would believe in you the most actually believed in you the least.
Right.
And it shouldn't be that way, but sometimes proximity and familiarity doesn't allow people to see the vision or know the value.
Right.
Because they only remember you where you were, not where you are and where you're going. And sometimes the only time they really see the value is in your absence, where you're no longer in their life. You're no longer around. And they look back and look at you and they begin to see the value that they had when you were in their life.
Right.
You know, and sometimes that value clarifies the vision that they didn't see while you were together.
Right.
You know, and so if we can't allow whether people are with us or not with us to stop us from walking out the vision. That's those singular moments where Jesus had a goal, that he had a purpose, where he had to make sure he invested in that purpose, invested in that mission, even when no one else was around. And then at times where there were other people that he had chosen to intentionally align with that were part of propagating what it was that he came to do. We have the mission of doing the same. Well, I have to make sure I own this vision, that I invest in this with everything that I have. And then also not just investing it in these one-on-one, these personal times that I have with the Lord, but these one-on-one times on writing the vision and making it plain. But those around me that can see the vision, even if they can't see the way. But because I'm on my knees and I'm praying and I'm investing in this, I can help define and clarify and then properly align those around me that will now help give this vision mobility.
People will help carry your vision. When you have the right vision, when you are doing what's ordained of you, what you're called to do. And that looks so different for so many people.
Man.
The right people at the right time will be in the right place.
You said something a moment ago, it hit me like a ton of bricks. You talk about vision carriers. And the thing that hit me is you have to be so careful because you got some people that are vision carriers and some that are vision barriers, you know, and you don't always know who's who if you're so quick to just grab and accept people because everyone looks like a carrier. In theory, there's a need to carry across. Like Jesus in Matthew 16 talked about anyone who's going to come to me and they're going to follow me, you're going to have to be willing to carry your own cross. This is before, Matthew 17:1, where he only called 3 up the mount with him. Who do you have around you that's able to carry the weight of what's been given to you? Who will lay it down at the first opportunity to not carry it? And then who will carry it no matter what the weight is? That's something that we have to be able to know and discern. Sure. And it doesn't happen easily, but it has to happen intentionally.
Absolutely. I had a person that wanted to partner up with me in one of my businesses several months back. And he just knew some of the success that we had had.
Right.
He knew, and he could look at clues. Success leaves clues.
Yeah, it does.
And he wanted to partner up, which I was game for. I was really interested. I wanted to do it. He didn't even last a month because he saw everything that had to go on the back end, everything that was going on when people thought nothing was going on.
Yeah.
And the beauty is that dissolved really quickly. Now, he had good motives. He had good intentions. Yet he didn't understand the concept of business. He didn't understand what it took on the back end. He didn't understand all the heartache. With that particular business, he hadn't seen the fact that I had been bankrupt. He hadn't seen the fact that I had been divorced. He hadn't seen the fact that I literally nearly lost my life. He hadn't seen all the sleepless nights.
Right.
He just saw the fruits of the work. And it's that way in a relationship, a marriage, just as it is in business.
Yeah.
When you link arms with somebody and you say, I do, what's the terms here in America? I do till death do us part. Through in health and sickness and rich and poor. It's been a long time since I got married. I don't remember everything, but I do.
I do too.
The thing is, when you hit those rough spots,
and you will hit them.
You will hit them. Doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter where you're from, you will hit them. Are you with the right person at the right place at the right time? Do you feel that you can be, and this is going to ruffle a lot of feathers in the Christian world. Do you think that you can be with the right person at the right time? And that time comes to an end? And I'm not talking about death.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about free will is you get the opportunity to choose or not choose. Love isn't love unless it's chosen. Like if you have the opportunity to not choose to love me, then I don't know if you love me because you didn't have an option to choose. You know how you can have a relationship that's really more of one of convenience and proximity. Well, I don't know if you have a real relationship until you get to a point where you have the ability to choose not to have one. So you can be with someone. All the things that are important for a relationship thriving seem to be present. They can seem like the right person, and we can, in our mind, feel as if they are. But even with all those things in place, I don't know the depth of trauma that they may have or things that they've dealt with or have not dealt with that could cause them to get to a point where actually being with the right person And being in the right relationship can be scary to them because it's normal. The dysfunction is normal to them, and this isn't normal to them.
Right.
So they can actually run from something that's good for them because they've gotten so used to functioning in their dysfunction that something that seems functional and right, they don't accept it because they said it can't be for me. And they'll walk away from it and it can dissolve. So those things happen, and they can happen. They happen more often than we think they do.
Right. Functioning in dysfunction.
Yeah.
How do you do that? That's what we will talk about next week here at Hustle Faithfully. Functioning in the dysfunction.
Yeah.
I remember growing up, one of the big terms in school was, I'm from a dysfunctional family.
Oh. What was Adam and Eve?
Exactly. That I never hear that term anymore because everybody is from a dysfunctional family.
You better believe it.
Everybody.
And the thing, and this we'll add this to what we talk about the next episode. But just because we love someone doesn't mean we have to give them access. Because everyone deserves love. The Bible talks about how important it is, but everyone doesn't deserve access. So being able to decide who deserves access and who to say no to. And sometimes no is actually the best thing you can say to them.
Yes,
and it's a loving thing to say to them. Like, this place in my life isn't for you, but I love you enough to keep you in my life.
No is a complete sentence, a complete statement,
Yes.
and a complete response. We'd like to once again thank Thought Provoking Change for sponsoring the Hustle Faithfully podcast.
Thank you.
You can join in at www.thoughtprovokingchange.com. Join the community today.
Yes.
And find a family of choice that will be there and have your back, hold you accountable, and help see you to your next level.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us at
you.
Hustle Faithfully podcast.
Till next time.
Until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Hustle Faithfully. Be sure to tune in next Thursday, 12 noon Eastern, for another inspirational word from Jonathan Ellis, the champion maker, and Ricardo McNeely. Again, that is next Thursday, 12 noon Eastern, with Hustle Faithfully. Until then, stay positive, stay motivated. Much love.